It says an error occurred on Facebook. I'll hit live. Let me hit live again.
It says it's been live for 10 seconds there.
Okay. So, hello, everybody. This is the Wednesday night Facebook Live, and I've decided to call it Chats for Change going forward. And we'll be sharing it in some different arenas. And occasionally I'll come on by myself, but I found it more interesting for me and probably more interesting for you as well to have guests and have topics. And so tonight, I'm bringing a friend of mine on, Dr. Tamsin Astor, such a regal name. And wait till you hear her talk, then you'll understand. But we're both kind of in the habit business. I wrote Habits for Success, and she wrote Force of Habit. And yeah, so we're just going to kind of talk about habits, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, just dig in. And Tamsin's book's really great. And if you want to learn more about her, just check out the notes afterwards, because I've got all the links and all that kind of stuff as well. And before we get started, I want to remind everybody about the new Facebook group that I just started. And it's also in the notes, the link. It's like facebook.com/groups/BU free you and the number 1. So lots of good stuff going on over there. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. Tamsin.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So gosh, yeah. Let's just dig in. How did you get into the habits business?
Wow, loaded question, right?
Of course. Would you expect anything less?
I got into the world of habits because of my own struggle with habits. I started to get physical, psychological, emotional symptoms by failing to really manage my own personal habits and putting the needs of everybody else before me. My children, my then husband, my clients, everybody I served before me, my dog, even, you know, like everybody was before me. And it took, you know, physical, psychological, emotional symptoms for me to go, hang on a second, back up a little bit. And when I went down the allopathic traditional Western medicine approach, you know, because the symptoms were so diverse and none of them really tied to a clear, you know, issue, a clear diagnosis, the doctors would go, I don't know, like, here's a script, take a sleeping pill if you're having trouble sleeping. Oh, I don't know, like, if you maybe just cut out wheat, you know, like cut out, you know, it was all just sort of, you know, non-specific. And it frustrated me to be given symptom suppressing approaches to something where we didn't really understand the root cause. And that's what led me to Ayurveda, which means the science of life. And there it's really about looking at the context of your life, and that's really what started me on my habits journey.
Did you, I know for me personally, I didn't really, it was kind of, I was just on my own self-growth, self-awareness journey, and I'm, you know, started doing a lot of things without really saying I'm creating new habits, you know what I mean? But looking back after, you know, kind of, as well as kind of being the observer's perch while it was happening, but looking back, I saw all these different things that I did. And so then I kind of just, well, let's share that. You know what I mean? So for you, that's kind of what it was for me. For you, did you just kind of, what's the word? Just find some habits kind of on your own, or did you specifically seek things that might help you particularly with some of the things you were going through?
Yeah. So I mean, it started with, you know, very disturbed sleep and weight loss and weight gain and, you know, hives and food allergies. And, you know, and I went down all the traditional, you know, testing routes for, do I have sleep apnea? Do I, you know, you know, could we rule out things? And, you know, I was in my 30s, and when they were like, I don't know, just take a sleeping pill, and wrote me a script, I thought, I plan on living until I'm 95 and being one of those like crazy ass, you know, great grandmothers, you know, with like pink hair, who's doing a headstand to make her great grandkids laugh, you know? And I thought, I don't want to be taking sleeping pills for 60 years. This seems crazy. There must be a better approach. And so that's what led me to find, you know, holistic or whatever alternative habits. And, you know, I tried acupuncture, and for like the first day after acupuncture, I would sleep brilliantly, and then the next day not quite as well, and then you know, and it would wear off. And so I tried like 6 or 10 or 15, you know, and it didn't stick, you know. So I kept going, okay, what about this, what about this, what about this, because I'm a scientist by training and nature. And so, you know, I'm like, okay, I'll try this and let's see what happens. Oh no, gather the data, you know. And it was Ayurveda, which you know, the key feature of Ayurveda is this thing called dinacharya, which is your daily rituals. your daily habits. What are you doing every day to create structure around your day? And I think as adults, we get really like I'm a grown up. You can't tell me when to go to bed, when to eat, that's what we do when we're kids and we're in school, or what we tell our kids to do, and I was like, I don't want a
Right. Do as I say,
bedtime.
not as I do.
Right, exactly. It's like, I don't want a bedtime. Like that's what I say to my 3-year-old, I mean, who's now, 10 or 16. I've got them all, I'm like, no, but I was like, I don't want to do that for myself. Like, that's really boring and middle-aged, And so I sort of was very resistant to a lot of it too, which was part of my own kind of like, digging in there that I had to do.
You're a bow rocker.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
No, well, I'm kind of saying I got to do it kind of my way. I mean, it sounds like you do as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're doing a whole bunch of research then, or maybe like doing a little trial and error at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And then I started going to classes and started understanding the power of Ayurveda. And I think the biggest shift for me when I started really digging into Ayurveda was that healthy in the West is defined as absence of disease. I don't have a disease, right? But healthy in the East is, are you seated in the self? Which is a completely different way of thinking about what it means to be healthy, right? Because, you can be in a place where you're quote unquote asymptomatic, but your kind of heart aches. I mean, a little bit like your journey, like your soul feels like you're not doing the work you're called to do. But in the West, you're healthy, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this really deep recognition of the intimacy of the mind and the body and the intuition and the, like the deeper self, and the energy that you're putting out there and integrating into you. And it's not just like, your BMI and your blood pressure and your blood sugar levels. And, do you check off these things for depression or anxiety or whatever,
Right. No, that's so interesting. For people out there who are just, kind of recognizing or maybe kind of feeling a little bit of a dis-ease within themselves, not necessarily because they're unhealthy, but because maybe they're feeling like they're not tapping into the, full version of themselves or whatever. What would you recommend, or how would you share with them to like maybe try to identify some of the habits that might be able to kind of help them head down that road?
So I mean, there's a
self-awareness and
I mean, sometimes there's a clear sense, right? You kind of, if you are willing to sort of step back and do a little observation and data gathering. So for example, one of the most effective weight loss tools is just to journal what you eat every day, literally to log what you eat every day, because people forget, like that extra handful of peanuts, that extra slice of cake, that, whatever, fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
So I always say to people, start by just, tuning into yourself and noticing like, oh, wow, like I always eat that extra donut at work. I haven't been to the gym I need to create space because I'm always filling my mind with Netflix, my phone, my kids, my job, and you just, so start by feeling into it. Yeah. And then gather data. Because the data will reveal a lot about what's actually going on. And then when you've got the data, that's when you start to do the work.
You're so right. I mean, for me, I was while I was kind of going through the process, I would almost try to be like in the observer's perch of my own life. And that's kind of the same thing, right? Of what you're talking about. And when it came to food, I got, and all those years of racing and triathlons helped me, but I kind of learned early on how certain foods made me feel. And for me, it was like more of I want to have energy and I don't want to feel lazy and logy. And so going forward, I remembered, how certain things made me feel, and I just kind of stayed away from it. Right. And,
Right. So you're tuning into that deep sense of what works for you. And I think that's one of the other huge issues we have around food in our culture, is that a lot of people eat while watching TV, while on their phone watching a YouTube video, while driving to work, right? Rather than sitting quietly. I mean, it's one of the things I do with a lot of my clients who have struggles with food, is I say, just sit with your food and look at it and think, where did it come from? What was the journey to get this food to your plate? Right? What's the color? What's the texture? What's the flavor? And like, so start by like actually mindfully engaging in the process of consumption, because when you eat, you are combining the external world with your internal world, which is a big ass deal, right? Like, this is something we should take really seriously, because you are bringing things in and changing your entire system. So take it seriously,
No, we wouldn't put cruddy gas in our cars, right? But yet we do it to ourselves, and we're more important than our cars.
Same with what we watch and listen to. I mean, that's what the other thing about nourishment, I think, is that often when we think of nourishment, we just think is what we stick in our mouth, but it's also like, what are we listening to? What are we looking at? What are we touching? What kind of clothing are we wearing?
Right. It's just like, everybody, you're here. It's just be in the present moment. Well, I mean, you're obviously just slowing everything down. And I mean, that's so important in anything. But what are some of the other habits that you found, or some of the things that you implemented that kind of helped you initially?
So one of the biggest things for me as a working mother, and now as a divorced, working mother, is to get up before my kids, which is much easier now that they're teenagers, and without me they'll easily sleep until 1. But when I started on this journey, my kids were those 5:45 a.m. risers, and so I would kind of jump into reaction. A toddler would run into the room, the baby alarm would go off, and I'd be like, from sleep to full on, right? And so for me it was going, okay, I need to get up before them, and I need to start the day on my own terms. Because one of the things that I think, and it's interesting, it's really been my life trajectory, is my PhD thesis was intention and reactivity, and was the tussle between the intentionality of our motor system and how we act with volition and free will versus reaction, and what that all looks like in the motor system and the philosophy. And that's really what my life has all been about, is how can we not be reactive? How can we be deeply intentional in how we structure our lives, so that when stuff happens, because stuff happens, and we all know that right now, like, we're all living through a state of complete unpredictability, which is incredibly destabilizing to the nervous system. We've got those intentional practices in place which allow us to, so that we don't go into crazy reaction.
Well, no, absolutely. And luckily, my very first book was on a whole bunch of different ways to stay in balance, because I was working on it myself. And I think having all those tools really helped me develop a routine that's worked for me for probably, going on 12 years now. And what I learned, just as you mentioned, is that it helped me become a lot more proactive.
Right.
When we're reactive, we're a slave to whatever's going on. You know what I mean? And it's just, the more proactive we can be, the more choice we have. The more choice we have, just the brighter everything is.
Well, I think the thing that a lot of people don't really realize is that by creating these rituals and routines, which are kind of a series of habits that we stack on top of each other, we actually create freedom. And a lot of people have this idea that freedom is having no habits and no rules. And also, habits get a bad rap, because the definition of habit is something that you can't change, or something that you do repetitively and you can't let go of. Like, a lot of the defining ways we think about habits are negative, rather than like, let's harness this amazing goal-achieving machine between our ears and put this habit stuff out there in a good way, right?
Absolutely, because whenever people talk about them, 99% of the time they're talking about the bad habits they have. They try to beat themselves up, and it just kind of perpetuates itself. Or they feel guilty, or they just feel less than, or it affects their worthiness.
And then you get that, like the shoulds, right? Which I read about in my book, that weight of I should look this way because this person on Instagram looks this way, or my sister-in-law looks this way, or I should make this perfect party, or I should vacuum up the dog hair more, or I should learn how to, I should. And it's this sort of, this insidious kind of weight that can sit on us, right? And make us feel, like you said, less than, like we're never, ever going to get through it and get there and be there and hit it, because we're always just shoulding on ourselves. And let's release that, please.
No, it's so true. And it's so true. What, boy, I was looking at your book today. It's wonderful, by the way.
Thank you.
Motivation. Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, so for someone to like really want to get that place of implementing change in their life, I mean, do they have to hit rock bottom? I mean, I don't think so, right? I mean, sometimes it helps, but I mean, depending on what you need to clean up or work on or redirect. But motivation, there can be a variety of reasons or motivate. You know what I mean? Motivation is an interesting thing. Sometimes it's the wrong thing that's motivating us to do something.
So, I mean, I think the thing about motivation is that you have to be in a little bit of pain to change. And people vary in what and how much pain they're willing to tolerate. So I think that is really about the motivation. And it can be, you know, physical, emotional, psychic, you know, like there's a lot of different pains, right? And, you know, for different people, one is going to be more motivating than another. For some people, you know, the physical pain of, you know, joints, right? And so, you know, like maybe you have arthritis or, you know, and you're like, okay, I need to change my diet because I'm clearly eating food that's inflaming my joint, you know, something like that, right? So sometimes it's clear physical pain, or you've got diabetes or insulin levels or something like that, right? For most people, though, it's what's interesting about that kind of motivation is it often doesn't stick. And we see that in, you know, often in allopathic frameworks. You know, if somebody comes in and they've had a heart attack or a stroke, or they've got all the markers that this is going to happen, and their doctor goes, you need to exercise, you need to cut this out, you need to and 6 months later they've made no changes. And so I think when we think about motivation, you know, the way that I, you know, now coach around it and speak around it, which is slightly different from the way I wrote my book, because, you know, I am somebody that's always reading and thinking and improving and tweaking and studying and learning and blah, 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 and seeing what works for my clients, you know, and creating iterative processes around it, is to get real clarity around your big life vision. Because you need to have that thing that's drawing you forward, right? Because when the alarm beeps at 5 a.m. and you think, oh, really, I want to go to the gym, particularly where I live in Cleveland, like where it's maybe like 20 degrees, you know, or even 20 degrees below freezing in January and February, and the icy wind is blowing, and you're thinking, I don't want to get out of bed. Like, this is horrible. You've got deeply embedded in you. Like I said, I want to be that crazy great grandmother doing headstands on the beach when I'm 94 to make my great grandkids laugh. You know, that's not going to work if I don't exercise my body every day. That's not going to work if I don't eat well. That's not going to work if I don't sleep. That's not going to work if I don't take care of my mind and my social connection so that I don't sink into loneliness. And, you know, all the things that we know are so important for our long-term well-being. So with respect to motivation, you know, I provide a number of different models for it in my book as a kind of lead in, because we're all very different. And I think a one size fits all model doesn't work. But, you know, that's the way I do the vision pieces. I look at a number of different pieces. But for most people, there has to be a little bit of a pain. And the pain can be, is this really all there is? I go to fall asleep, drinking a bottle of wine on the sofa, watching Netflix, wake up at 1 a.m, crawl to bed, the alarm goes off, I prop my eyes open, drink a couple of gallons of coffee, go to work, you know, and suddenly you're like this was not the life I thought I signed up for. So it can be that kind of, not the sort of like pre-diabetic marriage ending. It can be that like, oh my God, I thought life was supposed to be joyful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously sometimes somebody can look in the mirror and say, these are the habits I need to institute in my life, but yet there's maybe a shield up or maybe some things that I'm sure it will explain it. You probably have to do a little bit of digging to kind of help them unlock the door so they can walk through that particular door to start that habit, right? I mean,
absolutely. And it's part of that, you know, really looking underneath and trying to figure out, you know, how much of it is that it's a habit that's been ingrained for, you know, all of your life, 5, 10, 20, whatever years, right?
Yeah.
And then the thing that a lot of my clients, because my clients tend to be, you know, women in the kind of 40 to 60 range who are, you know, C-suite entrepreneurial, or maybe have taken a few years off and are getting back into it again after having kids. But a lot of these women have got to a place where they're thinking, like, what was my intention? Right? Like, I'm getting a little bit more free time here, but what is my goal? And I think, one of the big things around that is getting clarity around and getting comfort with owning your own desires. And I think culturally we do a really bad job of allowing women and pushing women to say, you totally can have this whole entire world and passion and desire that's outside of being a mother, that's outside of being a wife, right?
But you have to unwire from that, though.
What's
right?
that?
You have to unwire from that.
Right. And a big part of that is the sort of the shoulds piece and the guilt piece, and one of the ways that I try to help people see it, I'm a big fan of like analogies and metaphors, is, if you as a woman imagine yourself as a lighthouse and all of the people or the roles you embody are ships at your shore, if they can't see because you have not stoked your inner fire, they're going to crash at your rocks. They're going to crash around your feet, And so, when women come to me and they're in a place of massive depletion because all they've done is serve others and they've really forgotten, like I just remember one of my clients, and I was helping her get to the, like, let's wake up before the kids. And I said, start the day doing something that you love, walk around your neighborhood, go and get a coffee on your own, like read a book, or read an article from start to finish without somebody coming and throwing themselves on your lap, right? Or, call a friend of yours, or, go for a swim. Like what? And she was like, I don't know what I like anymore. And and the first week she literally got up and watched morning TV because she'd so sort of dissociated from her own unique wonderfulness and had totally moved into a space of serving everyone else. She'd stopped listening to what she liked. And I remember getting off that first call with her and weeping and thinking, this is why I do this work. Because, I'm a mother and I was a partner and I want to be a partner again. And those things and, all of the roles I embody are really important to me. But my own sovereignty is also really, really important to me. And when you subsume that to all of your other roles, that's when everything starts to fall apart.
That's so well said. Yeah. It's kind of a broad question, but where do you see most people struggle?
A lot of people come to me with a sense that they don't have enough time in the day to make the change, right? So there's a fear about doing the work because it's like, okay, you got to step back and you got to journal it, create some system, look and see what you're actually doing, right? Part of it is also the like, look under the hood, like, do I really want to face what I'm actually doing and not doing, and, so they'll come to me and they'll go, I don't have enough time to get to the gym with my schedule. I don't have enough time to write a book I want to write. I don't have enough time to learn how to knit. I don't have enough time to get to my kids' game or make healthy meals, fill in the blank, right? I don't have enough time. I don't have enough energy. I'm exhausted. And so I'm like, everybody has the same 24 hours in the day, right? It's about creating systems and routine. So, cook once, eat 3 times, right? Bulk cook stuff. That for me was one of the hugest shifts as a working mom, was to like plan that out. So I didn't have to go, it's Wednesday. What am I going to do? I'm not sure. I think, okay, I'm just going to order a pizza, right? Rather than going, open the fridge. Look, I've got the hummus prepped. I've got the chopped veggies prepped. I've got the, marinating this and the beans and that and the rice in the rice cooker all ready to go.
Yeah. Wow. What are some of your favorite habits for yourself and for your routine?
Oh, that's a juicy question.
Where to start?
So it's interesting with habits because there are some habits I do because I know that they regulate me, but sometimes I'm really resistant to doing them, right? So it's kind of like, it has that sort of medicine thing. So for example, meditation is something that I've been doing since 2007. I've been meditating. But, I'll go through periods when the alarm will go off and I'll get out of bed and I'll think, I just really want to go and sit and read a book, or I really want to go for a walk, or I really want to get on Facebook and see what's happening about this thing, or get onto my Washington Post app, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Or, I can't, you rationalize, right? But I know that when I meditate every day, I'm a better human, because emotions are always going to come up. We're always going to have feelings. It's the nature of the human experience. But it's learning to create the space between the emotion and the reaction, the behavior, right? It's learning to make that space so that we show up in alignment with our values, show up in alignment with our ethics, show up in alignment with the things that we know are important. And so for me, as a mother, when I don't meditate, I've got a much shorter fuse. I'm more likely to snap at my kids, right? And so even though part of me much prefers the journaling, much prefers doing the yoga, much prefers going for the walk, lifting the weights,
Those are all perfect. Those are forms of meditation too.
Well, you see, I'm going to argue there that they're not. Those are mindfulness practices, and they're very different from specifically working with the mind, right? So the way that I define it is that you can be mindful about doing the dishes, right? The water's running over my hands. I'm thinking about the meal that my family have shared. Look at this beautiful knife, yada, yada, right? I'm being mindful rather than sitting there going, God damn it, why am I doing the dishes again? And nobody else is helping me, right? But meditation is literally an act of learning to work with your mind. And in the Buddhist tradition that I'm trained in, there are two main types. One is to boost concentration. So it's it's like learning the gap thing, right? Thinking, having thoughts, letting go. I really want a cup of coffee. Do I have any creamer left?
Yeah.
When I next go to the store, I also need to get dog food. Thinking, right? So it's learning to create that space. Then there's the analytical form of meditation, where we're learning to work with particular emotions, feelings, people, categories, ego, right? A lot of that is ego work, right? And that's different. And so for me, one of the key habits is meditation. The other thing I think, there's the theory of the keystone habit, right? Which, if you figure out your keystone habit, when you nail it, all the other ones fall into place. And when you can figure those ones out, that's also a really good thing to do. And one of the best tools I've found is that when you start instituting habits that serve you, so maybe starting the day with a green smoothie and a couple of pints of water, moving, meditating, journaling, sort of the kind of classic, what we know, the things that set the day up right, is that then family is staying at Thanksgiving, and maybe two of those three things or three of those things drop off, and you're like, it's been 3 days and I haven't exercised. Starting to feel pretty sludgy. Or it's been 3 days and all I've eaten is carbs and sugar and butter and fat, and my body is going, God, I need a kale smoothie. So you start to notice when your situation changes, which are the ones that you're like, ding, 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 ding. So that's another sort of useful. I give really long answers, Brian. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I feel like I have multiple keystones. I mean, food, what I eat, is a keystone. I have to have movement every day, preferably in the morning. It just helps me relax into everything, it's not really a habit. I mean, I shouldn't even balance. I mean, balance is an umbrella for a lot of things. So, but all these things help me stay in balance.
Right.
What's another? I don't know if I have more keystones. Would this loving and accepting ourselves, would that fall under? I mean, that would be ultimately a keystone, right? I mean, if you do that, pretty much everything falls into place.
Right, because how am I loving myself by what I'm eating? How am I loving myself by how I'm talking to myself? How am I loving myself and the way I show up in the world by doing mental practices such as meditation, journaling, therapy, tapping, anything like that helps you modulate how you, think and feel and show up, and how you, exactly, like how thinking, one of the habits that I remember learning when I was doing my Ayurveda training was Abhyanga, which is like warm oil massage for the body. And I remember kind of thinking, this is going to be messy, and it's going to, I'm going to slip on the tiles in my bathroom. And I kind of created all these rationalizations about why this was a total pain in the butt and I wasn't going to do it. And Ohio is really, really dry in the winter. And I was getting really scaly arms and legs, and I was teaching yoga, and I was just like constantly feeling like I was like slapping a Vino or something, you know, on my, you know, Eucerin, all of those sort of, you know, dermatologist approved lotions, you know, but it never lasted. And I was like, well, this is ridiculous. Like, how dry can I really be? You know, like what's going on here? And my teacher was like, look, give Abhyanga a try, because it'll help with that dry skin, but also with your Ayurvedic. My Ayurvedic profile is Vata, which is the lot of the air and space. I'm Vata Pitta, so air, very airy. So I tend to go into this like, and you know me, right? Like I'm like, my mind goes in a million different directions, and I'm walking and I'm here and I'm, you know, like rabbit. Abhyanga, you face your body, right? You're rubbing, you're applying pressure, and that is incredibly grounding, because it really brings your mind and your focus into your body, right? So you deeply connect the two. And also as a woman, and a woman who's had children, it's really good to face your body and like acknowledge it, right? And be like, yo, thank you, stretch marks. You know, I grew a baby. That's amazing. I grew 3 of them. Woo! Like I breastfed 3 kids. Like, yeah, my boobs are not going to look like they did when I was 21. And that's okay, right? Rather than being like, I'm not going to face it. I'm not going to think about it. Like my body, you know, and it's not about being, you know, obsessive. And I've got a 10-year-old daughter, and I'm like really, you know, getting much more, and with social media, aware of this, right? So it's not about like, but it's about like, this body is a meat suit that houses this and this. And I want it to work well. And I want it to not get in the way of me being able to do the things I want to do. And I don't want to spend time hating it, because that's valuable mental real estate and time and effort and energy that I could be using to change the world, rather than thinking, God damn, my thighs
block everything. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that like those sorts of practices that, you know, push you to face yourself, right? Like the self-love. Like I think that's really, it's huge. It's huge. Really giving ourselves that space to, I mean, I had one client who I gave her this tool. I was like, stand naked in front of a mirror, full length mirror, and look at your body parts that you've criticized, and talk to them. She couldn't do it. She for like weeks, she resisted getting naked. She's like, I don't even want to look at myself naked. And that broke my heart. I'm like, you know, you've birthed 2 children. You've got a lovely husband. You know, like you've got this wonderful job. Like, you know, you're this amazing human being. You know, just because your body doesn't look like, you know, what it did when you were 21, what it looks like on Instagram, what it looks like on fill in the blank, you know?
Yeah. We're starting to get close to the end here, but share with the listeners the 3 S's. I mean, you know, it's a great. I think it's a really nice little tool to help somebody who's just starting a new habit.
So the 3 S's was something I came up with because, you know, I've got, you know, amusing male family relatives who talk about the importance of doing the 3 S's every day before they go to work. And so I was looking for, you know, an acronym that would be easy to remember, right? So the 3 S's are the same time, same place, and sandwich. So when you are adding a new habit, you want to do it at the same time every day, because when you are looking at creating habits, right? So habits have 3 pieces, and the actual behavior itself is the middle bit and is deeply embedded in the brain. And so when we're looking at creating a habit, we want to look at the cue, the thing that triggers the habit, the thing that pushes you into action. So time is a really good cue. Right. And we know that from being at school when we're kids, like, you know, the weekends, you're like, my stomach grumbles at the same time as I eat lunch all day at school, right? When you're a kid. So same time, add that habit at the same time. And even if things get in the way and it can only be 3 minutes, same time, you know, do it at the same time every day. Same place. Places have energy. And if you're trying to cultivate a new practice at home, so say like a meditation practice or a home yoga practice, when you do it in the same place, when you walk past it, you're like, and I'm looking at my place, right? Like my side porch. I'm like, that's where I do my yoga. Yay. That's my exercise space, you know, and it's got, you know, candles and essential oils and like nice stuff in there, you know, and that's my space, right? And then the third one, which is really where we're really diving into some of the cool neuroscience, is sandwich. And sandwich is when you want to insert the new habit between two things that are already consecutive and are pretty sticky. So, for example, if you get up every day and you walk to the kitchen and you make coffee and you let out your dog, but you want to add, say, meditation, you're going to get out of bed, sit your butt down, meditate for 3 minutes, and then go into the kitchen, right? So you're going to stick it between those two things that you always do, right? So one that I used to say to one of my clients who used to laugh about this a lot was he was trying to get into a morning exercise routine. And so I was like, put your gym shoes and your workout clothes at the bathroom door. So you literally have to like step over them to get into the bathroom. And it's like, put them on and off you go, you know, same time, same place, sandwich.
Same time, same place, sandwich. Love it. Thank you. Thanks for joining me tonight.
My pleasure. I hope the skies have just opened. We've got massive thunderstorms here in Ohio. Oh, wow. So if you heard some like bangs and crashes, that wasn't my dog and my children. They're all quietly restrained upstairs. I'm just kidding. It's thunderstorm outside.
Well, since we could use some rain out here, send some rain.
Yeah, that's not an issue. We have so much here.
So people can find you at www.tamsinastor.com, right?
Yep, my website. Yep.
And everybody check out the show notes because it talks a little bit more about her and the work that she's doing. And there's also some links about me as well as that Facebook group that I talked about. And I look forward to seeing everybody again next Wednesday. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.